Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The date is 19th Dhul Qa'dah 1447 on the Islamic calendar, corresponding to 7th May 2026 on the Gregorian calendar. And you are watching Muslim World News with me, your host, Abdulrahman Mohamed. Let's dive in headfirst and take a look at today's headlines. On to our first story, right here in Kenya. Kenya shifts ambition to AI delivery. And on international news, Trump launches Hormuz escape mission. Our biggest story on business, the KRA moves to tighten rental tax compliance. And finally on sports news, Antonelli wins Wild Miami race. Dear viewers, now let's take a look at our first story right here at home, where traders at Sokomjinga market in Wajir are raising concerns over a growing garbage problem that they say is hurting businesses and putting their health at risk. For several weeks now, waste has remained uncollected, leaving sections of the busy market dirty with a foul smell, driving customers away. One trader said the situation is becoming unbearable. This situation is really affecting us. Customers don't want to come here anymore because of how the place looks, and we're also worried about getting sick because the environment is not safe, she said, Mariam Hussein, and I quote. Most of the traders are small-scale vendors, many of them women who depend on daily sales to support their families. They're now calling on county authorities to step in, improve waste collection, and restore cleanliness in the market. Sokomjinga is one of the busiest markets in Wajir. Serving hundreds of traders, it has faced challenges in the past, including fire incidents, and traders say the current garbage crisis making an already difficult situation even worse. Now on to our next story right here in Kenya. Kenya is making headlines across the continent today as it shifts its focus from digital ambition to the actual delivery of inclusive artificial intelligence services for its citizens. At the close of the Connected Africa Summit on May 1st, 2026, the Ministry of Information and ICT launched a groundbreaking AI for Disability project. Supported by global partners like Huawei, the initiative uses machine learning to create customized assistive tools, placing inclusivity at the heart of Kenya's next digital wave. The push is backed by the new AI Bill of 2026, currently moving through the Senate. This legislation ends a long-standing regulatory vacuum, providing legal protections against algorithmic bias while creating regulatory sandboxes that allows local startups to test AI solutions in sectors like agriculture and health without red tape. Beyond policy, the shift is visible in the fields. The newly formed National Agriculture Council is already integrating AI with bioengineering. This convergence decade strategy aims to move beyond simple connectivity and use data as the new fertilizer to protect the nation's food security. Reflecting on the strategic pivot during a roundtable in Nairobi, ICT Authority Secretary Mary Kerema stated, "For too long, the digital economy has been about access for some. Our inclusive AI pushes ensure that innovation and trust advance together so no Kenyan is left behind." As Kenya prepares to host the Global AI Everything Expo later this month, it is clear that the Silicon Savannah is no longer just dreaming of a digital future. It is actively building it. For our next story, leaders are appealing for calm after rising insecurities triggered tension between residents of Garissa and Kitui counties, disrupting transport, trade, and daily life. The unrest has forced bus operators to suspend services along the Garissa-Mwingi-Nairobi route, following a series of attacks linked to clashes between pastoralists and farmers. We understand the anger and frustration among residents, especially after the loss of lives, but taking the law into your own hands will only make things worse. I urge everyone to remain calm and cooperate with authorities, said Hassan Osman. The tension follows recent deadly incidents, including an attack that left several people dead and another involved the killing of a teenage herder. Residents have staged protests as police work to restore order, while leaders continue to call for restraint and dialogue to prevent further violence. Now on to the coastal region, where Mombasa County has announced plans to build 4 new hospitals at a cost of nearly 1 billion shillings in a move aimed at improving access to healthcare services. Governor Abdulswamad Nasir made the announcement during a groundbreaking ceremony in Kongowea, where one of the facilities will be constructed. The other will be located in Mikindani, Likoni, and Port Reitz. The governor says the project is a part of a broader plan to bring medical services closer to residents, especially in underserved areas, and to ease congestion at Coast General Teaching and Referral Hospital, which currently handles most of the county's cases. This hospital will be one of the largest in the region, and it shows our commitment to making quality healthcare more accessible to our people. County officials say the expansion will strengthen service delivery across Mombasa by decentralizing healthcare and improving infrastructure. Once complete, the new facilities are expected to reduce pressure on existing hospitals and improve patient experience. Now moving forward from Africa, let's take a look at the Middle East, where journalists in Gaza marked a grim World Press Freedom Day this weekend, as the death toll for media workers in the enclave reached a staggering 262 since the start of the conflict. Gathering at a rally in Gaza City on Sunday, May 3, 2026, reporters held portraits of their fallen colleagues to protest what they called the systematic targeting of the press. The Palestinian Journalists Syndicate reported that 2026 has already seen 6 new fatalities and over 300 documented attacks on media crew. The Committee to Protect Journalists has called for urgent international action following the April 8th killing of Al Jazeera correspondent Mohammed Samir Washah. CPJ notes that the current conflict remains the deadliest for journalists ever recorded, with survivors facing constant threats from drone strikes and a lack of basic safety equipment. Beyond the physical danger, the Palestinian Press Union reports that nearly 190 media institutions have been destroyed. Despite this, local journalist continues to broadcast from tents and ruins, describing their work as a daily struggle to keep the Palestinian narrative alive amidst a communication blackout. Addressing the crowd in the West Bank city of Al-Bireh, Omar Nazal, the deputy head of the Journalists Syndicate, stated, "Activities organized on World Press Freedom Day aim to highlight the exceptional and unprecedented conditions under which the Palestinian journalists operate, facing the fiercest Israeli war machine." As World Press Freedom Day ends, the focus remains on the survival of those still reporting from the front lines in Gaza. Now, our next story is still on the conflict in the Middle East. A second Iranian supertanker has been spotted navigating Indonesian waters on Monday, marking another successful breach of the United States naval blockade of Iranian oil exports. The vessel, identified as the Derya, was tracked entering the Lombok Strait early on Monday morning, May 4, 2026. This follows the arrival of a sister ship, the Huge, which passed through the same strategic waterway just 24 hours earlier, carrying nearly 2 million barrels of crude oil. According to maritime analysts at tanktracker.com, both vessels successfully evaded US Navy monitoring by disabling their tracking signals since mid-March. The tankers are reportedly heading towards the Riau archipelago to transfer their cargo valued at a combined $440 million. The use of the Lombok Strait, a deeper but less congested route than the Malacca Strait, suggests a shift in Iran's maritime strategy. While the United States Pentagon reports that 40 vessels have been successfully turned back since April, these recent sightings raise questions about the long-term effectiveness of the blockade. A spokesperson for the monitoring firm tankertracker.com noted the significance of the move on social media, stating, "A national Iranian tanker company, Supertanker, has managed to evade the US Navy and reach the Far East, demonstrating the sophisticated of Iran's shipping strategies." As the tankers move closer to their destination, the international community watches to see if the United States force will attempt a late interception or if the Ghost Fleet has once again outmaneuvered the blockade. On our next story, tensions in the Middle East have reached a new flashpoint this Monday as President Trump rejects Iran's latest peace offer and orders the US military to begin freeing hundreds of ships trapped in the Strait of Hormuz. The operation, titled Project Freedom, officially commenced on Monday morning, May 4, 2026. The mission involves a massive task force of 15,000 personnel and guided missile destroyers tasked with guiding over 850 neutral commercial vessels out the volatile waterway. The military push comes hours after the President Trump dismissed a 14-point peace plan submitted by Tehran. The president characterized the Iranian proposal as unacceptable, particularly its demands for an immediate end to the U.S. naval blockade and the withdrawal of American troops from the region. Tehran has reacted sharply to the news, with senior lawmakers warning that the American intervention in the strait constitutes a breach of the standing ceasefire. Despite the rhetoric, the US maintains the operation is a humanitarian necessity for seafarers who have been stranded for weeks with dwindling supplies. In a statement posted to his social media platform, President Donald Trump issued a blunt warning to any potential disruptors. If in any way this humanitarian process is interfered with, that interference will unfortunately have to be dealt with forcefully. As the first convoy begins their transit under the watchful eye of the US destroyers, this morning the world remains on high alert for any signs of military escalation. Our next story focuses on the south of Africa, where a French national has been detained in Madagascar after authorities accused him of being part of a plot to destabilize the country through sabotage and incitement of unrest. Prosecutors say the suspect, a former French serviceman, is facing charges including criminal conspiracy and plans to damage key infrastructure such as power lines and thermal plants. Speaking on Tuesday, prosecutor Nome Narinera Mihamintsoa said other individuals, including a Malagasy army officer, have also been charged in connection with the alleged scheme. Authorities allege the group coordinated its activities through a WhatsApp chat named Revolution of the Brave Citizens, which was reportedly used to discuss plans to trigger power cuts, spread misinformation, and encourage rebellion within security forces. French officials have strongly rejected the accusation. The French foreign minister said the claims were not only unfounded but also incomprehensible, and defended its continued cooperation with Madagascar. The diplomatic row escalated after Madagascar expelled a French official over alleged involvement in destabilizing activities, prompting Paris to summon the Malagasy charge d'affaires in protest. The case comes amid continued political tension in Madagascar, a country with a history of instability and recent protests that has influenced leadership changes in the island nation. Now on our next story, a court in Uganda has handed down a death sentence to a man convicted of killing 4 toddlers in violent attacks at a nursery school in Kampala. This sad incident happened on April 2nd on the Gaba Early Childhood Development Program, where the 38-year-old accused Christopher Okello Onyum is said to have entered the facility and carried out the fatal stabbing of children aged between 1 and 2 years. The Judge Justice Alice Kamuhangi said in her ruling he attacked them while they were completely defenseless and treated them with extreme brutality, showing no regard for human life. The court was told that the accused initially admitted to the killings, allegedly describing them as a ritual meant to bring him wealth, before later denying responsibility and claiming he was mentally unwell at the time of the incident. Prosecutors relied on multiple forms of evidence, including forensic findings, CCTV footage, digital call records, and eyewitnesses' accounts from nursery staff. The court rejected the insanity defense, concluding that he was fully aware of his actions. Onyam, who holds dual Ugandan and US citizenship, has 14 days to challenge the ruling. Uganda still retains capital punishment in law, though executions are rarely implemented. From stories of real human lives and faces, now let's take a look at numbers and statistics on business news, where on our first story, Kenya Reinsurance Corporation is planning to expand into asset management as it seeks new income streams beyond its traditional reinsurance business. The state-backed reinsurer says it wants to reduce reliance on underwriting by moving into fund and wealth management, where it would invest money on behalf of clients and earn fees from managing assets. Kenya Re has already started the process by seeking consultants to carry out a feasible study on the process venture. The study will examine market opportunities, legal requirements, capital needs, and the best way to enter the business. The company is considering two possible routes, either setting up a new asset management subsidiary from scratch or acquiring an existing fund manager to gain faster market access. The move comes as Kenya Re looks to cushion itself from pressure on earnings caused by growing competition in the regional reinsurance market. The firm posted lower profits in 2025, largely due to weaker performance in some foreign operations. If successful, the expansions would allow Kenya Re to diversify its business, strengthen shareholders' value, and tap into Kenya's growing investment management market. Now, on our next business story, the Kenya Revenue Authority is planning stricter rules that would require landlords to register rental properties on its digital tax system as part of efforts to increase tax collection from the housing sector. Under the proposal, property owners earning taxable rental income would be expected to list their units on the electronic digital income tax system, a platform introduced to help monitor rental earnings and improve compliance. KRA says the move is aimed at widening the tax net after collections from rental income remained below expectations despite the introduction of the online system. The authority believes many landlords are still operating outside the tax framework. Officials say the new rules would also require landlords to keep clearer records on rent collection, making it easier for the taxman to verify earnings and enforce compliance. If approved, the changes would give KRA tighter oversight of the rental market and increase pressure on property owners to declare income and meet tax obligations. Now, on to a final business story. Kenya has temporarily relaxed fuel quality standards to allow the import of petrol and diesel with higher sulfur levels as the government works to avoid supply disruptions. The adjustment gives fuel importers more flexibility in sourcing petroleum products at a time when global supply chains remain under pressure. Officials say the move is intended to keep the market stable and prevent shortages that could disrupt transport and business activities. Under the temporary measures, importers will be allowed to bring in fuel that does not meet the stricter cleaner fuel standards previously adopted by the country. The waiver will remain in place for 6 months as authorities monitor supply conditions. Government officials say the decision was made after concerns that sourcing lower sulfur fuel had become more difficult and more expensive due to international supply challenges. While the move is expected to ease pressure on fuel availability, it has also raised concerns about environmental impact and possible effects on newer vehicles that perform better with cleaner fuel. From numbers and statistics of business news, now let's take a look at sports news. We're on our first story. Faith Cherotich and Winfred Yavi are set to renew their growing rivalry in the women's 3,000 meters steeplechase at Xiamen Diamond League in China later this month. The race will mark another chapter in one of athletics' fiercest matchups, with the two stars meeting again after treading major wins over the past 2 seasons. Cherotich heads in the contest as the reigning world champion, while Yavi remains the Olympic champion and one of the strongest names in the event. Their latest showdown comes after Cherotich beats Yavi to win world gold in Tokyo, a result that strengthened her rise in global steeplechase. Yavi, however, remains a major threat with her experience, speed, and strong record on the Diamond League circuit. The Xiamen meeting is expected to deliver another high-quality contest, with both athletes aiming to set the tone early in the Diamond League season. The race will also feature a strong field, adding more intensity to what is already shaping up as one of the headlines events of the meet. For our next sports story, this one goes out to all motorsports fans, where Formula One's newest sensation, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, has claimed a historic third straight win in a Miami Grand Prix, defined by high-speed drama and a chaotic final lap shuffle. The Mercedes driver crossed the finish line at approximately 6:57 p.m. UTC on Sunday, May 3rd, holding a narrow 3 seconds lead over McLaren's Lando Norris. The victory makes Antonelli the first driver in history to convert his first 3 career pole position into 3 consecutive race wins. The wild finish saw a frantic battle for third place end in heartbreak for Ferrari Charles Leclerc, spun on the final tour, allowing Oscar Piastri to secure a podium finish for McLaren. In the ensuing scramble, George Russell and Max Verstappen also moved up the order, leaving Leclerc to finish 8th after a post-race penalty. The standings have been significantly shaken. Antonelli now sits comfortably at the top with 100 points, followed by teammate George Russell at 80 points. Ferrari and McLaren remain in a tight battle for second in the Constructors' Championship, with Mercedes holding a commanding 68-point lead. Reflecting on the intense pressure from Lando Norris, Antonelli told reporters, "It was not an easy one. Lando was incredibly quick, and I knew I couldn't make even a single mistake with him breathing down my neck." As the F1 circus leaves the Florida sunshine, the grid looks ahead to the Canadian Grand Prix on May 24th, where all eyes will be on whether anyone can stop the Antonelli juggernaut. On to a final sports story. FIFA says it will reassess its ticketing approach for the 2030 World Cup after growing criticism over the high cost of tickets for the 2026 tournament. The football governing body came under pressure after fans complained that ticket pricing for the 2026 World Cup in the United States, Canada and Mexico had become too expensive for ordinary supporters. FIFA Secretary General Matthias Grafferstorm said the organization had taken note of the backlash and would review its pricing model ahead of the next World Cup. He said the current prices were influenced by demand and market conditions in North America. Fan groups have strongly criticized the pricing systems, arguing that the cost of attending matches has become too high and risks shutting out loyal supporters. Concerns have also grown around resale prices, with some tickets for the 2026 finals listed at extremely high amounts. FIFA has defended the pricing model, saying revenue from the tournament will be reinvested in football development across member nations. Still, the organization now says it will revisit the strategy as it plans for the 2030 edition. And before we wrap up, here's something happening every second right in front of your eyes. Did you know your brain is constantly editing what you see to keep the world steady? Even as your eyes jump from point to point, something they do thousands of times a day, your mind quietly filters out the blur, fills in missing details, and blends each moment together. It's like a built-in editor, making sure your views of the world feel smooth, stable, and continuous instead of shaky and fragmented. Your brain actually edits your vision in real time every time your eyes move, which happens constantly. Even when you think you're staring still, your brain briefly blocks out the blur and fills in the gaps so you don't notice the motion. This process, called saccadic suppression, works like a built-in stabilizer, cutting out the visual noise and stitching each moment together. Without it, the world will feel shaky, jumpy, and disoriented, more like a glitching video than the smooth, steady view you experience every day. So the next time everything feels perfectly still, just remember it's not just your eyes doing the work. Your brain is behind the scenes, stitching every moment together, filling in gaps, smoothing motion, and quietly turning constant movement into a seamless picture you can trust. If you didn't know, dear viewers, now you know. That brings us to the end of today's program of Muslim World News. But as we've come to the end of our news bulletin, in a world where the take, make, waste model is quickly reaching its breaking point, Kenya is taking a bold step towards a greener, more inclusive future. The Absa Bank Foundation, in partnership with GIZ and African Guarantee Funds, officially launched CirculaRising, It is the country's first and largest initiative dedicated to circular economy, with an ambitious goal to create over 6,000 new jobs and empower 2,000 women and youth-led businesses by 2028. The program seeks to prove that economic growth does not have to come at the expense of our environment. By turning waste into value, CirculaRising aims to redirect 6,000 tons of waste back into the economy, impacting over 30,000 lives across the country. I've been your host, Abdulrahman Mohamed, and it's been a pleasure having you with us. Stay informed, stay inspired, and may peace be upon you. Here's our reporter Shaban Yusuf with our feature.
Kenya imepiga hatua kubwa kuelekea uchumi wa green economy. Jijini Nairobi, Absa Kenya Foundation kwa ushirikiano na Germany Corporation for International Cooperation pamoja na African Guaranteed Fund wamezindua programu ya kwanza na kubwa zaidi ya uchumi mzunguko nchini, CirculaRising. Mpango huu unalenga kuunda zaidi ya ajira 6,000 pamoja na zilizoboreshwa ifikapo mwaka wa 2028, huku ukisaidia zaidi ya biashara ndogo na za kati 2,000 zinazoongozwa na wanawake na vijana. Kwa msingi wake, programu hii inalenga kubadilisha namna Kenya inavyotumia rasilimali, kuondoka katika mfumo wa chukua, tengeneza, tumia na tupa, na kuelekea mfumo endelevu ambapo taka zinapunguzwa, zinatumika tena na kurejelewa katika makuzi. Akizungumza wakati wa uzinduzi, mkurugenzi mtendaji wa Absa Kenya, Abdi Mohamed, alisisitiza umuhimu wa kubadili mtazamo wa ukuaji wa uchumi. Alieleza kuwa uchumi wa baadaye utategemea uendelevu, ambapo ufanisi unazalisha thamani na taka zinakuwa rasilimali.
The circular economy allows us to turn environmental pressure into commercial opportunity. And we've seen the amazing stories that have been told here. And for Kenya to achieve the growth that we require and building of a greener, more inclusive economy, SMEs must be central to that story. We must also be clear on where future growth will come from. It will come from young people and from women-led enterprises. This program has been designed around 3 clear pathways, and through these pathways we aim to support more than 2,000 entrepreneurs and enable thousands of direct and indirect jobs in the process.
Mpango huu utatekelezwa katika awamu 3. Awamu ya CirculaRising Academy inatoa mafunzo na msaada kwa zaidi ya biashara ndogo sana 2,000 kupitia ujuzi, ufadhili na upatikanaji wa masoko. Awamu ya Accelerator inayoongozwa na GIZ itasaidia biashara ndogo 150 zinazokuwa katika maeneo mbalimbali ikiwemo Central Kenya, Magharibi, Nyanza na Pwani. Wakati huo huo, awamu ya Scale Up itasaidia hadi kampuni 30 za kati na kubwa kupanua shughuli zao na kufikia viwango vya kimataifa vya uendelevu. Mpango huu unafadhiliwa kwa pamoja na serikali ya Ujerumani pamoja na Kenya Foundation, ukiwa na lengo maalum la kuwawezesha wanawake katika minyororo ya thamani ya green economy. Kwa mujibu wa mwakilishi wa GIZ, Thomas Jikcha, mpango huu unaunganisha ukuaji wa uchumi na athari za kijamii na kimazingira kwa kuongeza kipato huku ukiboresha usimamizi wa taka.
CirculaRising is expected to contribute to substantial impact over the coming years, including job creation, stronger enterprise performance, and measurable environment results. And this includes redirecting thousands of tons of waste through reduction, reuse, and recycling, enhancing the competitiveness of more than 1,000 enterprises, and improving the employment situation of more than 5,000 Kenyans, while also positively affecting livelihoods and communities beyond the direct beneficiaries.
Serikali pia imepongeza hatua hii. Kupitia hotuba iliyowasilishwa kwa niaba yake, alisisitiza kuwa biashara ndogo ndizo uti wa mgongo wa uchumi wa Kenya na kuahidi kuendelea kuziunga mkono.
By embracing circularity, we are not only addressing waste management and pollution, but also unlocking new economic opportunities, fostering local manufacturing and creating green jobs, particularly for youth and women. The program complements Kenya's national circular economy agenda, and therefore it demonstrates what is possible when government, policy, private sector leadership, and development partners work together in alignment.
Ifikapo mwaka wa 2028, mpango huu unatarajiwa kuhamasisha zaidi ya euro milioni 2 katika ufadhili na kurejelea zaidi ya tani 6,000 za taka, huku ukiathiri maisha ya zaidi ya watu 30,000 kwa njia chanya. Kadri Kenya inavyoelekea katika uchumi mzunguko, mipango kama CirculaRising inaweka msingi wa mustakabali endelevu na imara kwa biashara na jamii kwa ujumla. Nikiripotia Al Huda TV, jina langu Sheban Yusuf.